We're going to talk about converting JSON to C#. So you'll typically see this when you're consuming a REST API. We're going to use GitHub API for this example. So I'm going to use Postman. It's got my user, and it's just going to get back my information about my user. So we're going to copy that. It's Control A, Control C. And if you go to Edit and Paste Special, Paste as JSON classes, you'll see they'll populate everything here, all the properties. It does look at the values to work out what their data type should be. So if you do see sort of a null, like we can in the bio here and the username, they will need to change into string when you're going to use it. Otherwise it's not going to be the correct type when it has actually got value. So we'll just do that now. We'll call this Visual Studio user because that's where it was generated. Then we'll move it to its own type. And also we'll change this to a record just so it outputs the when we're using console write line. It basically just overrides the toString method with all the property names when you've got using a record. So to keep this sort of simple, we're going to use we're going to read it from the disk rather than calling the API directly. But if you did want to call the API directly, you can use HTTP client, or you could use REST sharp or any other library that you want to use. It is worth mentioning that record is only compatible with C# 10 and onwards, and C# 10 can only be used with .NET 6 or onwards. So we'll read that from the disk now. So we actually do need to write that file actually. We'll call it data.json. So we'll call that data. And then I'm just going to copy that data from before. And this is the Newtonsoft way of deserializing the JSON, which you can use that, or you can use the inbuilt Microsoft version, which is JSON serializer and deserialize. So press Control dot, and then we're going to use Visual Studio user. And then we'll just we'll output that now. Oops, what I've forgotten to do is if you click on the file, we do need to copy it to the output directory. So as we can see, that's got all our information on it now. But this is not my preferred method of doing it, JSON to C#, and the reason for it is it's just a preference, but the properties I don't really like the naming convention of it. So there is a website called jasontosharp.com, and it will give you a better naming convention. But this is a personal preference. You don't have to do this. So if you paste that in, click on this JSON property name if you're using .NET Core or using .NET, so .NET 5 or 6. If you're using anything older, the .NET framework, click this JSON property attributes. So click on convert, click copy to clipboard, and you'll notice it's got this JSON property name, and that's just what's actually going to map to in this in this JSON file here. So we'll call this JSON to C#. Delete that because we don't need it. We'll change that to a record. and we're just going to do the exact sort of same this time, and we're just going to use a JSON to C# user, and I don't know where that console write line went, but and we do have the same sort of behavior where the objects are, so email, Twitter, and bio. And if we run that, it'll give us the exact same results. The only difference now is in the user, it's got nicer names basically. One thing to sort of keep in mind is if the JSON sort of schema has like a dictionary that it's using, I've kind of made an example just to demonstrate to you. You will need to manually correct it because it doesn't really generate correctly. So let's say you've got this, for example. So you've got persons, and then each under there you've got a person. So now if I come down here, go to paste special and paste as JSON, you'll see it's actually making complex types for each dictionary item, and we don't want that, so we'll delete that and we'll change that to, let's say, person. We'll delete that, change that to a dictionary, we'll call it an int, and we'll call that a person, and we'll call that just root. So we'll put that there, and since it's a dictionary, it's not going to output all these persons. So we'll just set a breakpoint on here, just so you can see the values that it has populated, correctly. So there we can see Gary Spinks as as the second person, and the first person is Paul Spinks. And that's all there is to converting JSON to C#. I hope it helped, and thank you for watching.